How will Democrats respond to a move to gerrymander districts in Congress? Texas Republicans have begun a special legislative session, as we've been reporting. They're following President Trump's direction to redraw the map for congressional districts in that state with an aim to win several more seats for the Republican Party in next year's elections. It is rare for redistricting to happen in the middle of a decade instead of at the beginning, right after a census. Now, some Democrats are seeking to redraw their House district lines in blue states with hopes of regaining the advantage. California Governor Gavin Newsom said in a press conference last week that he is considering options for his state to redraw lines.
And I'm not going to be the guy that said I could have, would have, should have. I'm not going to be passive at this moment. I'm not going to look at my kids in the eyes and say I was a little timid.
Former Texas Representative Beto O'Rourke approves of redistricting by his Democratic colleagues in other states to respond to Texas. Here he is on CNN.
We have to get serious. We have to be absolutely ruthless about getting back in power. So, yes, in California, in Illinois, in New York, wherever we have the trifecta of power, we have to use that to its absolute extent.
A Democratic lawmaker who favors that ruthlessness has come by our Studio 31. Representative Ritchie Torres of New York, who represents the Bronx, joins us now in studio. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks for coming by. I really appreciate it. What's the basic idea you're promoting?
Well, I would describe it not as ruthlessness, but as fairness. In an ideal world, there would only be a redistricting at the beginning of the decade after the decennial census. Mm-hmm. No one in the Democratic Party wants a redistricting arms race. But if Republicans are going to rewrite the rules in the middle of the game and redraw maps in Texas, which could yield up to 5 seats, then we have no choice but to respond and reciprocate. To stand by passively would mean unilateral disarmament.
Can you do that in New York?
It's theoretically possible, but we face constraints in New York.
There's a constitutional provision.
There's constitutional provisions that might be lacking in Texas, but we have no choice but to try, because Republicans are essentially cheating, or essentially rewriting the rules in the middle of the game, and either we counter their cheating or we become complicit.
You're saying that you would like your state's leaders, even in New York, despite the constitutional provisions, to try to find some way around them and see if you can get a different electoral map.
We should attempt to redraw maps in a fair manner within the constraints of the Constitution, yes.
There is a Democratic congressman, one of your colleagues, Jared Huffman of California, who has said, wait a minute, this is a race to the bottom, which does make me wonder how much partisan redistricting would be too much.
Look, I see it differently. To just simply stand by passively and allow Republicans to rig the process in their favor is actually a form of complicity. It's the opposite of protecting democracy. So I respectfully disagree.
Even though, people watching this from the outside are perhaps thinking, we're being manipulated here. All the same votes, and you slice us up in different ways and come up with a different result.
Look, I think it underscores the need for a national system in which we take the politics out of redistricting. Democrats are in favor. We've passed legislation in every legislative session where we were in the majority, only to have it obstructed and opposed by the Republicans. But if one side is playing by the rules and the other side is pursuing power at all costs, that's a losing proposition for the Democratic Party, and it's a losing proposition for democracy.
Yeah, I'm really interested in the complexities of this. There are a number of different purposes that you can serve with redistricting, and one of them is maximizing the number of seats your party gets, but another is incumbent protection, which, as I understand it, is more common in redistricting. Yes. The party in power will protect their seats, and you have fewer and fewer seats that are truly in play anywhere in Congress. How do you think that has affected the business that the House of Representatives does, that you're in?
Well, the principle that governed the original Texas redistricting was incumbency protection. And, Republicans should be careful what they wish for. The Republicans in Texas have the intention of strengthening the Republican seats, but could have the effect of weakening them in a climate that is likely to be more favorable to Democrats.
I guess we should explain the math. Instead of, X number of seats that are 60% Republican, you have more seats that are 52% Republican. So they might lose one.
And those seats easily could become more competitive. And we heard this warning from a number of, like Jared Golden in Maine has said, be careful what you wish for, because he is a Democrat who won in a Trump district.
What do you think about, Congressman, as you hear Democrats being described even 6 months into the Trump presidency as being confused, in disarray, still trying to figure out their loss in 2024, still trying to figure out a message for 2026 and beyond?
I think the Democratic Party is a work in progress. We have a message, which is affordability, to focus like a laser on lowering the cost of living, which was the dominant issue in the New York City mayor's race. But look, we're facing an unprecedented challenge to our economy, our democracy, our society. I mean, Donald Trump has no regard for the rules and norms of democracy. And so there's no formula for the kind of resistance that we're mounting against Trump 2.0, which is far more vindictive, far more aggressive, far more emboldened than anything we've seen before, including Trump 1.0.
Do you think that there has been a problem in finding a new generation of leaders for the Democratic Party?
I think a new generation of leadership is emerging. There are younger members who are assuming committee chairmanships, like Robert Garcia for oversight or Angie Craig for agriculture. So the new guard is rising, and we have a new generation of members of Congress who are adapting to the world of new media. You know, as Democrats, if we have confidence in our message, we have to be willing to take that message to every corner of the alternative media ecosystem. And that's something we're starting to do.
Is that something that Republicans did better in the last election?
I think Donald Trump is one of the masters of alternative media. And for a long time, we're playing catch up.
We have here a very old president, to state the obvious, and yet there are a lot of older members of Congress on the Democratic side opposing him. I think of this recent rescission that passed. It barely passed the House of Representatives. Just effectively by one vote. And when I looked back at that, I realized there were 3 Democrats who didn't vote because they had died since the previous election, and 4 more who were a little bit older and were not present. Is there still a problem with the age of your party?
There's no question it's a problem. I mean, Congress is essentially a gerontocracy. I think my running joke is that I work for the most prestigious senior center in the world. But we look. Elected officials have trouble mastering the art of exiting gracefully. And if you become a shell of your former self, it's time for you to go and allow for a new generation of leadership.
Ritchie Torres of New York represents the Bronx. He's a Democrat. Thanks for coming by our studios today. I really appreciate it.
It was a pleasure.